2025 is here, and will it be the year that you finally seek and find God's will for your life? Every New Year's, Christians set New Year's resolutions to deepen their faith, but by week 2, they've stopped. They've encountered some obstacles or hit roadblocks, which sent them off course, and unfortunately, that's where it ends for many people. But what if there's a way to reach your goals and find God's will for your life, regardless of how many obstacles or roadblocks you face? By the end of this video, I'm going to convince you that I can help make that happen for you. The only requirement is on you and your ability to act on it. You need to have an open mind and be willing to take action when the time comes. And at the end, I'll share a bonus tip that is crucial to finding God's will. If you don't know me, I'm Chad Torgerson, a spiritual director, writer, and I've spent the last 5 years working one-on-one with clients to help them find and live out God's will for their lives. But you can get those same insights just by hitting the subscribe button. So as 2025 begins, you've spent some time in discernment, I hope anyways, to seek God's will for your life. If you haven't, then that's where we need to begin. A journey without a goal in mind is doomed from the start. If you were to take a trip to one of the many great national parks here in the US for a hiking trip, you wouldn't simply venture off into the woods without a destination in mind. It's dangerous. So before you go, you would spend time researching the national park to find places that you'd like to go. You need to gather information, understand what options you have, while at the same time spending time discerning what destinations you'd like to visit. Do you want to sit by a river, hike through the mountain trails for the beautiful views, or find that hidden waterfall that few people know about? That's why most of the videos on this channel surround this concept of discernment. As someone who spent years in the military, I wouldn't go out on any mission without a clear destination in mind. It's impossible to plot a course without it. So discerning, in my mind, is the key to the spiritual life. To grow deeper in faith, to go beyond the pews and grow closer to God, you need to spend time discerning. And although it's important here at the beginning of the journey, it's vital as you move forward as well. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So when you finish this video, or pause it now if you have to, if you want to find God's will for your life in 2025, it starts with discerning the possibilities in front of you. One word of caution before you choose your destination, though, is understand your limitations first. Without training, I wouldn't hike the most difficult paths. If I couldn't swim, I wouldn't take a dip in the river. If I was afraid of heights, climbing a steep cliff would not be on my itinerary. And based on how good a shape I'm in, I would plan my travels according to my ability. Hiking 10 miles in a day with a full loadout of gear by yourself might not be the best plan. So when you're planning the destinations in your discernment process, you have to take into account whether you can actually reach them. You can't go visit the hidden waterfall if it requires a hike beyond your skill level. Otherwise, it's a recipe for disaster, and I'm going to see your name on the news as another hiker lost out in the woods. And so it goes with your spiritual life. What are our strengths and weaknesses? Set attainable goals for this year. What can you reasonably accomplish in 2025? Let me give an example. God gave me the gift of comprehension. I can understand complex ideas and put them to practical use naturally. What I'm not good at is memorization. I'm awful at remembering names, places, and dates. It doesn't come naturally at all. So if I had plotted a course in graduate school to become a theological scholar, I probably would have failed miserably. But I understand my strengths and weaknesses, so I pursued a degree in Christian spirituality instead, where the focus is less on memorization and more on applying spiritual truths to our daily lives. Now, as I share my faith on YouTube, I'm not sharing a discourse on the royal genetic line found in 1st and 2nd Kings. I'm showing you how to find God here in your everyday life. So as you look forward to God's will for your life in 2025, look at the goals and destinations you spent time discerning and ask yourself, what limitations are there? Not to say that you shouldn't still pursue some of those goals, but that you need to plan for them. Understand what extra effort or care that you need to accomplish them. Some goals may not be attainable, so remove them from the list. Others will come easily, naturally, so make those a priority. And when those destinations narrow down, the key question is, how do you get there? You've picked out the places that you'd like to visit at the national park, but now you have to plot the course on how to reach each one of them. For that, you'll need to factor in time and ability. How long will it take you to reach each point based on your abilities? Someone who's an avid hiker can cover more ground in one day, so they can reach further and more difficult spots on the map. A beginner will take a little more time to get there though, which means a few less stops or prioritizing the stops that are easier to reach at least. The spiritual life works the same way. If God's will is for you to develop a stronger prayer life in 2025, you have to know what your current time and ability is. If you're limited on time, maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day is a good place to start. And if you're new to prayer, keeping it simple will make it easier to form a habit. Meanwhile, if you have the time and an already established prayer life, plotting a course that leads to 30 to 60 minutes of quiet time with God and contemplative prayer each day might be reachable. Plotting the course in your spiritual life is different for every person. Don't look at the path that others have taken. Plot the course that best suits the time and ability that you have right now. Otherwise, it'll only lead to failure. Speaking of failure, realize that it's inevitable. At some point, you will stumble on the path, but the key is how you react. Quick tip, discernment helps, but again, we're going to touch on that in a moment. When you set out on your trip, you will hit setbacks that can either slow you down or send you completely off course. This might mean that you're unable to reach certain milestones in time, if at all. When this happens, you have a few choices. Simply go back home the way you came, or you can continue pushing forward. If bad weather comes, find some temporary shelter to wait out the storm. If the trail's more difficult than expected, take extra time to pause and rest along the way. You'll get there eventually, just don't give up. Because in reality, the only real failure is giving up. The obstacles you face and the roadblocks you come upon will only slow you down. But the moment that you quit is the true moment of failure. You'll fall along the path. You'll get dirty, muddy, and feel like giving up. But you need to get up, wipe off your face, and keep moving forward. I covered this in a recent video on overcoming failure where I talked about some of my own struggles with it. God understands that you'll face challenges and expects you to stumble at times. His hope, though, is that you continue to pick yourself back up again. Let's say that your goal is simply to read scripture daily. Well, life happens and you fall off track for a while. Does that mean it's over? Does that mean you should wait until next New Year's or some other arbitrary date to start again? No, of course not. Just grab your Bible and start up again. Or let's say that your goal is to make a career change. You start applying for jobs, but nothing comes of it. Do you abandon the goal? No, you keep applying, keep seeking, keep hoping that it's simply a matter of the right opportunity not coming along yet. Failure may be inevitable, but it actually makes it easier if we expect it. You can be ready to face whatever challenges it brings with the mindset that failure is where some of our greatest growth happens. Failure then is an important part of the journey. Behind every failure is an opportunity to learn and gain wisdom, which really is the true blessing that comes from any spiritual journey. So on this pretend trip to a national park, which at this point I really want to do because I've been talking about it here so much that, leave a comment with some of your favorite national parks. So again, on this pretend trip, you learn that one of your destinations is not reachable. This can be for a lot of reasons. It's close to the public, you're running low on time, or you're realizing it's beyond your ability to reach. So what do? Well, it's time to adapt. God's will is not set in stone. You discern those places from the beginning, but now that you're in the middle of it, you're realizing that you may need to make changes. Adaptability is paramount. Simply stop for a moment to collect your thoughts and chart a new course. It's that simple. You may not reach all of your destinations, but you can be proud of the ones that you did. And you may actually reach some destinations that you never expected, which really is another amazing part of the journey. Pursuing God's will is no different. You have to continually adapt to what's happening in your life right now. When you first plotted your course, you couldn't have known what was going to happen 3 to 6 months later. Adapting then is key. St. Ignatius famously wanted to serve in the Holy Land, but when he got there, they turned him away. But in the end, it all worked out because God had other plans for him. When life forced him to change plans, he could have given up. But we would have missed out on all this great wisdom that I share with you on this channel every week. So in your life, realize that these changes are a part of the process. God wanted you to go in a certain direction so that the right opportunities could present themselves. Even your struggles and failures play into that. You wouldn't be where you are right now, about to embark on this journey of seeking God's will for your life, without the obstacles and setbacks that directed you to this very moment. So God's will for your life then is fluid, and it requires you to adapt. Just as your failures open opportunities for greater wisdom, adapting to life setbacks offers you the chance to reach goals you never considered before. And this is where discernment comes into play. You may have heard me say before that discerning is not something you do, a verb. Discerning is something you become, an adjective. You take on a spirit of constantly discerning your next steps. You can discern those initial decisions, but then you must continue to adjust and discern as the situation changes. And this leads me into the bonus tip. In the coming year, after facing failures, setbacks, and the need to adapt, are you still following God's will for your life in 2025? Tying back to our original story, your initial decision was to visit a national park. You discerned the places you wanted to go, and along the journey, you were forced to make changes. But remember, your initial goal still exists, to visit a national park, which you've accomplished, even if your exact path and destinations within have changed. So as you look at this ultimate goal of following God's will for your life in 2025, you may initially discern a direction to take until life seems to throw it off course. But wherever life leads you, you're still following God's will for your life as long as you keep it the primary focus and purpose. In other words, God's will is not found in the specific goals and milestones you reach, but in the process. The wisdom that comes from your failures, the strength you gain from adversity, the growth that comes from your ability to adapt, all leads you closer to God. And that is, in its truest form, God's will for your life. The rest is just details. And if you want to become more discerning, hit the subscribe button, and I promise that we'll continue that journey together.